This is a guide to your module assessment for Childhood Ed PES4005. Okay, the idea of this recording is that you've got this that you can look back through throughout the module, stop, record, stop, pause, go back over stuff. This is all explained, everything to do with the assessment, because this is a different assessment I want to explain within this short recording. Okay, so what is the assessment for this module? This is one assessment, so it's really, really important that you make every effort to pass this. There's no other opportunities until the retrievals at the end of term. You have 3 attempts at any one assessment at university. Hopefully you're going to do good at this. As you can see here, it's a group presentation. It's 100% weighting. We'll get more into what the parameters of a group presentation is in a moment. So this is a PRES. The assessment code is called PRES. You'll see that on the submission portal. It's a group presentation and it's 100% weighting. So the reason we're doing a group presentation, obviously you're all beginning a career within education. You're continuously going to be working with other people. If you're a teacher, you'll be working with different teachers in different year groups. You'll be working as a team. Whether you like it or not, we are going to have to be working with teams throughout your working career, whether you work in education or other fields. So it's really important that you get that experience here at university. I get that it's really difficult. I get that it's really hard to manage your time as well as somebody else's, but it's really important that you get to experience and try and manage working with groups, because it's such an important skill and it's something that needs to be learned and developed. So it's really important from that first session. Obviously we've only got a month to create this group presentation. It's really important that you work together, you set out times that you can work together, and you delegate tasks. It shouldn't just be one person doing all the work. And we have had instances in the past where one person's felt they've done all the work, and unfortunately we've had to split the group up and it's affected their mark. So we're all adults here, this is higher education, you are going to have to work together, but delegate the tasks. Most of the groups get on absolutely fine and they really enjoy this presentation because it's something that's different, you all can contribute, and it's quite a fun assessment to do in that we're creating a vodcast. I'll talk about that more in a second. So really important you have a balanced distribution of workload. It could be an assignment that is actually a lot easier than maybe some of your traditional essays, because if you split that workload, it doesn't have to be such a heavy burden. Really important that you work in groups. You use the seminar time to work together as well, so sit together, use the time to meet after the seminars as well, make time throughout the week to make sure that you do this throughout. We've had some really successful examples which I can share with you within this presentation, but those people work together and it's important that you do that. So just remember through this, it may be hard, it might be challenging, you're developing collaboration skills. This is going to help for future modules because the group work's not going to go away. And again, you're going to be doing this within the workplace and within schools. I'm sure a lot of you will absolutely love this. This is a revalidated module. So the old assessment for this used to be a presentation where you'd stand at the front and you'd deliver on the curriculum. So in a lot of ways, a lot of the students last year were really glad they didn't have to do that. And the group presentation means that element, that fear of public speaking, you don't have to worry about that within this module now because the assessment's changed. So as I've said, don't duplicate tasks, work together. It'd be good to delegate or work out a team leader who can delegate tasks. Really important you set up a communication channel, whether it's WhatsApp, Snapchat, whatever works for you, email. But it's important that you start to delegate tasks from that first session. Really important that you start to think about who's in your group, who's going to be doing what. Manage workloads, manage schedules, manage team meetings when everyone can make. Obviously, I know people have got childcare, work, jobs, loads of different commitments throughout the week. So it's important to set up a weekly meeting and stay on top of this. Don't leave this till the last week, because that is where you're going to really struggle. And again, thinking about the timing of this, people may be going home. Obviously, this is the end of term. This is the last module in the block. So really think about managing now. Look at your calendar and think about where can we meet, where can we get work done. Definitely use technology. I'll be talking to you through this a lot through my modules, you know I'm the geek of the team who tends to use a lot of technology. Hopefully I can share some of this technology use with you. But if I were you, I'd be setting up a shared folder on OneDrive. If you want me to show you that, I can do that in sessions. Set up a shared drive, share that amongst your group, and then you can all contribute to the same presentation. If you're using, for example, an electronic digital PowerPoint, give everyone editing access, and then you can all start to contribute, and then it takes the burden away. You'll all see how this presentation grows because you can all be adding and contributing at home, which is really, really important. From the off, be vocal about your strengths. Say about, are you better at presenting? Do you want to be in front of the camera? Or do you want to be behind, maybe doing some of the editing? Are you good with editing? Any influencers out there who are good with TikTok, good with different editing tools? Definitely say, talk about what is your knowledge. Some of you will come from England, some of you will come from Scotland, some of you will come from Northern Ireland, for example. If you've had experience in different curricula, which you'll see in a moment when we get on to what the question is, really important you put your hand up and say, I can do this bit because I've gone to school in Scotland, for example. I've gone to school in England. You'll see what I mean in a moment. But definitely share your strengths. So use technology that we've got today. You can really enhance your collaboration. As I've mentioned, you all have access to OneDrive. You all have access to this brilliant platform, which is free, unlimited storage. So set up a Teams folder. If you're not too familiar with using OneDrive, maybe you want to use Google. You could use Google Slides, Google Docs. Again, use a cloud platform. Create a shared folder, give everyone editing rights. Again, I can show you this in the seminar if this is what you want. And make sure that you all can contribute from home. That's really, really important. Obviously, you can set up Teams meetings. I personally would set up a Teams channel where you can keep everything on there. You can set up all your meetings. Again, I can show you how to do that. I have recorded a short guide which I've put on Moodle about how you can use technology to support this assessment. It's a separate video. It's about 5 minutes long. It's not too long. If you're not too afraid with technology, have a quick watch of that. But again, the whole point of this is you're developing skills. So if you're not that good with technology, you're starting to think about, how can I develop my skills? Because you're going to have to engage with technology as a teacher, especially with using technology to collaborate. If you're a Year 4 teacher, for example, you might be collaborating with another Year 4 teacher, and they tend to do that through Google Classroom or OneDrive. Okay, so the assessment here is a group vodcast. You might be thinking, what is a vodcast? I've heard of a podcast. I'll go through that in a minute. We'll go through that in sessions, but you're creating a group vodcast. So working in small groups, 4 to 5. We did have some 6s last year. We'll talk about that in the session. You're going to be creating a vodcast, which is going to go onto YouTube. The overall aim of the assessment is in groups to design and present the new curriculum for within a vodcast. There's 2 parts to this. The first part we'll go through in a moment, and we'll go through the second part as well. The first part is about a presentation on a pedagogical focus. You might be thinking, Nick, what is a pedagogical focus? Don't worry, we'll go through that in a moment. But this is a pedagogical focus on your curriculum design. Groups are going to select one topic to do this, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then you will present for 20 minutes on that in your vodcast as a group. Part 2, you're going to be creating, designing, and then presenting a new curriculum. So in your group, you're going to create a new curriculum. You're going to look at all the existing curricula in the UK. So, for example, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, England. You're going to use those, have a look at those and think about what you like, maybe what you don't like, and you're going to create your own curriculum there, and you're going to then present that, which is 10 minutes of the vodcast. I'll go through this in a bit more detail. Okay, so the overall aim of the assessment is in groups to design and present a new curriculum in the form of a vodcast. That's it. That's the aim. So you're going to do that as a group. You're going to upload your presentation to YouTube, and then you're going to share that one link amongst your group, and you're all going to submit that group URL. Some of you might be thinking, Nick, I have no clue what a vodcast is. Okay, so a vodcast is quite like a podcast. I'm sure quite a lot of you have listened to podcasts. We're going to look at some examples in this session, but it's a video stored in a digital form. You can upload to the internet, play on a computer or MP3 player, if anyone uses them anymore. So I'm going to show you some examples in a moment. We're going to go through this in the session, but basically it's quite like a group presentation that you're going to record and put online. So there's some examples that we can show you here. This is one.
The year that the world really cottoned onto this distance video communication thing, and platforms like Zoom and Google Meets have really come to the fore. And when it comes to the changing face of education and what one can now do.
So you can see here, this is quite simply you talking to your webcam. If you've got a microphone, we've got like microphones that you can lend. It's just you talking. You could use this format where it's you talking to the camera, and as you saw there on Teams, other people can join in within your group. That's a very simple format, which most groups last year did go for. This is another example. So you could have a presentation, images, and you could do a voiceover over the top, editing in iMovie.
Creative, analytic, and ethical. Can work in teams and collaborate. They speak out for many people who want to speak for themselves, like minorities with problems, in order to improve.
So that's another example of what you could do. You can see here, this is Talking Heads.
AI, new kind of tools, how rapidly the world feels like it's changing around us, climate crisis.
So it's up to you how you film this. You could do some groups last year, because people went home at different times, they found that they would record their own separate bit at home, and then they would all upload that to their shared folder, and then one person would edit that. People tended to use iMovie if they've got Macs, and they just stitch that together. So then maybe some people did the first bit, some people did the second bit, then some people did the conclusion. This is another format that you could choose. It's up to you. You've got full agency on this. You can decide, this is why I like this presentation, is because your group can decide on what you want to do. Okay, some other examples here. So there's a number of teachers now who have got podcasts, vodcasts. This is an example of American version.
Give you an overview of the learning we will be completing throughout the month of March.
So with this, very simply, they've got some titles that come up, and she's just talking in, it looks like her bedroom there, which you could do as well.
Book 2 will be What Will the Weather Be by Paul Rogers. Books 3 and 4 will be student-chosen books and based on the...
Okay, so another example. And that's the final example, sorry. Okay, there's other examples that I can show you. There's other examples that are on Moodle. You could have, if I was doing it, I think I'd think of more of like, the grid structure. You could use Zoom, you could use Teams, and you could have all your group on the screen. And then you could have your presentation, like I've got mine floating here. You could have that on Teams. You could use Prezi video. Again, this is a free format to use. This is why I'm using this today. I love Prezi. You look like a news presenter or a weatherman, woman, whatever. It looks good. So you could use this as well. I'll talk to you about technology within the sessions. Try and be creative. The whole point of this assignment is that you develop digital skills as well as thinking about pedagogy and thinking about the new curriculum or curricula as such. Okay. So why a vodcast? Really, really important that you start to develop these digital skills. As I mentioned, this is something that as a teacher, this is a digital skill, it's something you're going to need to develop. It's not to say that you will be making a vodcast as a teacher. A number of teachers are doing this though. Increasingly educators are engaging with vodcasts. In year 2, currently we're making a vodcast with some year 5 pupils. There are a number of teachers within Wales who have their own podcasts. Even here at Cardiff Met, we've got some lecturers who run a really successful global podcast. So it's something that's really easy to create, and then really, really easy and free to upload to free platforms such as YouTube, for example. So this has increased, obviously, with COVID. Vodcasting and podcasting is a new media that, as Selwyn and Jandrik say here, is something that modern educators should engage with, and it's key skills that you need to master, even if you just impart these skills onto your children that you're teaching. So you're definitely going to hopefully engage with some new designing, creating skills whilst doing this. Obviously, we've seen heavy investment from Welsh Government. They have their own podcast now. There's a number of schools which you'll see within the sessions that are actually engaging. They've got their own radio shows, some have got their own TV channels, some have got their own vodcasts. You know, it's amazing to see what is actually going on within schools across Wales. Obviously not all schools, but obviously we want to highlight and share with you the most innovative practice to try and get you to start to think about what you can do within your class. Okay, some other examples here. Why a vodcast? As I mentioned, this was the original assessment for this a few years ago was for you to present this, a similar sort of thing you'd present at the front of class. Again, people would develop public speaking skills, which is really important as a teacher, but student feedback, and to show the power of student voice. A lot of students didn't like that, and they felt quite intimidated in their first year doing this, and they felt presenting as a group would be better. And from discussion with reps, from discussion as a team, we developed this as a vodcast, which has worked really well for the last few years. On this assessment, you are going to engage with the different curricula. You're going to get a really good understanding of the curricula within the UK. Obviously, we're in Wales, but it's important that you get a really good understanding of, and you start to do some research on Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, other countries in the UK, because you can see what's going on there. You may even start to work there. So it's really important that you start to clue up and get some better idea and knowledge on what the curricula is in different countries, because it's very different. Even in this small island, we all follow different educational curricula. Okay, we're going to get into and focus now on part 1 of the vodcast. So part 1, on the module, the way that it's structured, we do part 1 first. It's quite top heavy. There's quite a lot of lectures, recorded content. You might be overwhelmed thinking, oh my God, this seems like a lot of work compared to other modules. If you look at the actual structure and content layout, this is different to other modules in that you'll get the first 2 weeks is this part 1 focus. It's very top heavy with a lot of recorded lectures, longer seminars. This will drop off as we get to part 2. Okay, so just to flag that up at this stage. Okay, so your group need to select one of the following pedagogical focuses, which we'll look at on the next slide. This is the larger element of your vodcast. You need to spend more time. You need to spend more time as a group researching this. You need to spend more time on this element of the assessment. So part 1, you get more marks for this. This should be a longer part. So this should be 20 minutes. Okay. So you can see here, if you've been to Specsavers, I'm going to struggle here to read. So this is part 1. This is the pedagogical focus of topics. You have 9 to choose from. As you will see, these correlate with the lectures. Now, one thing I want to stress is that you need to come to all of the lectures. You need to engage with all the recorded lectures. You need to come to all the seminars. Engagement's really important to this module, as with all modules. Don't, if you, for example, choose student voice, only come and watch the student voice lecture. That's not the point of this module. It's really important. You may be choosing one pedagogical focus, but obviously all these lectures are going to be important and they will definitely help you with other modules. Okay, so you're going to choose one of these. These all relate to the lectures. So, for example, we've got ideology there. We've got one there on transitions. We've got one here on external agencies. We've got a speech and language therapist. We've got an educational psychologist. And we've got a head teacher from a pupil referral unit. We've got assessment. We've got one on planning. We've got one on student voice. And we've got some children from a number of schools who talk about how student voices change their schooling and the impact that's had on their learning. We've got models of teaching, we've got support staff, and we've got one on the effective practitioner. What makes an effective practitioner? Really important that you read the whole question and you answer that question within your assessment and your vodcast. There were a few people last year who did support staff, for example, and they just told us what a teaching assistant was, for example, and they didn't actually tackle the whole question. So make sure you answer that whole question. These are up on Moodle, they're on the handbook, they're also within the assessment tile. Everything you need to know about this assessment is on the assessment tile. Okay, we're going to go through this in sessions. I'm going to briefly go over this. So for example, if you chose what is student voice, evaluate the effectiveness of student voice in primary education to discuss how this may be used or not used within the education system. So a potential structure to this would be, you'd start with, you need some definitions. So you need to support, even though this is a group presentation, even though this is a vodcast, you have to engage with academic sources, books, journal articles, book chapters, academic sources, not Mumsnet, not web sources, not blogs. You could start there, but don't quote them, okay? We'll talk about this in sessions. You need to make sure, as a group, you do a lot of reading. There's a lot of you. That's what I mean by delegating things. So, for example, you could say, what is student voice? The team leader could delegate that to maybe 2 people to find some definitions, some examples from practice. I'm going to show you some examples in the seminars, but you may have your own experience. A lot of you have worked as a TA, or some of you are working in schools. Some of you have had experience in schools. Bring that experience to the sessions, and definitely you need to bring in expectations from the curriculum. So you need to look at the Welsh curriculum, you need to look at the Scottish curriculum, you need to look at Northern Ireland curriculum, the English curriculum. What are their expectations in terms of student voice? Evaluate the effectiveness of student voice in primary education. So you can see here I'm breaking down the question into separate elements. So I'm answering the next bit then. So examples from practice, definitely support with academic sources. Make sure you offer a balance. So you're not just saying that student voice is brilliant, and you're not just saying that student voice shouldn't be used. What you need to start to do, and I'm sure that this has been mentioned on other modules, and you're starting to see this in your feedback now from lecturers, you need to provide that balance. So your job isn't just to say that student voice is brilliant, and your job isn't just to say that student voice isn't very good. You need to provide that balance, and that's where some criticality comes in. Use a range of academic sources. Some academic sources will say how good and how effective student voice is. There'll also be academic voices which actually say that student voice can actually not work and maybe could be a distraction to learning. Try and find those sources, put them into your presentation. Discuss how this may be used within education, in the education system. So describe how it's been used in the curriculum, but then also talk about what you've learned from your research, and as I mentioned there, maybe provide examples on maybe why student voice can be a distraction to learners. Sometimes student voice can be brilliant, but if we only listen to pupils, there would be no progression from their learning. Obviously, you're going to, as becoming a teacher, you're going to go through this long progressive route. You'll have done this degree, a PGCE, your NQT year. You know a lot more than a year 4 pupil. Their voice is really important, but so is your knowledge of the curriculum and pedagogy, so don't forget that. Obviously, you need your introduction, your main body, and your conclusion. I'm flying through this now. We are going to go through this in sessions. I am going to show you examples in sessions, but I'm just flagging a potential structure to you here. Okay, there's examples there on Moodle that you can have a look at. Most people last year, and again, I'm a huge advocate for trying to get out of your comfort zone. If you've used PowerPoint before, try something like Canva, try something like Google Slides, try something like OneDrive and using their online cloud presentations rather than the traditional PowerPoint. PowerPoint is absolutely fine. You could do that. But again, you're at university to try and push those limits, those comfort zones, and try and learn new things. A lot of groups last year did use PowerPoint, which was fine. It's a great way to present ideas, but there are many other platforms out there. So use this as a group. Try and use this as an opportunity to explore this. So using a presentation tool, this could just direct your group. You could put some quotes there. Your presentation that I've got here, you could have quotes on the screen and you could talk around that, for example. Look to use relevant images, videos, sound files, and to break up the discussion. It doesn't need to be 20 minutes of you just talking. It could be videos. It could be, for example, some images of you and things that you've learnt within the school you're working in. It might be screenshots from the curriculum, for example. It's up to you. And again, I'll show you some examples when we're in the session. All right, coming on to part 2. Part 2 is obviously the shorter element. There's 2 sections to this. And you're probably thinking this is getting complicated now, Nick. Again, you can pause at any point just to digest this. Part 2 is about the aims, design and structure of your curriculum. So you guys as a group, you're going to design a new curriculum. You can have whatever you want in it as long as you've got some justification there. So I want to see your principles and purpose of your curriculum. And I want to see the breadth and balance. Again, you might be thinking, what is this, Nick? We have detailed lectures about this, so don't worry too much. But the idea of this part of the assessment is that you'll look at existing curricula. So you'll look at Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England. I'm going to say this at this point, and you're probably thinking I'm nuts. Trust me, every single year, one group always does this. Sweden, not in the UK. Finland, not in the UK. China, not in the UK. You have to use existing curricula and refer and contrast and compare to countries in the UK. Do not compare to Finland. Do not compare to Sweden. Do not compare to America. I'm saying this now, one group will do it. You won't get marks for it. Okay, the whole point of this is you focus on the UK. Please do that. So you can get inspiration from them. You don't need to create a whole new curriculum. You know, groups that last year that did really well, that got first, they just looked at elements of the Welsh curriculum. They looked at elements of the Scottish curriculum. They looked at elements maybe they didn't like in the Northern Ireland curriculum, and they put those in. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, but you do need to start to think about, as a teacher, what are your underlying pedagogical principles? What are your philosophies? What would you like to see in the curriculum that maybe you didn't have growing up? For example, you might think that now, in the 21st century, really important that we have digital skills as a big part of the curriculum. Maybe as in Wales we have at the heart of the curriculum now, we have well-being, which sits at the heart of the curriculum, which is brilliant. I think that's really, really important to learners that will be entering the workplace in about 20 years' time. They need to have those skills to manage their own well-being. Really, really important, I think, personally. So if I was inventing a new curriculum, I'd have that. So you're going to have your purpose. So in this section, you need to say the purpose of your curriculum. What is the point of this curriculum? You know, in Wales, we've got the 4 purposes. Maybe you'll have 4 purposes. Maybe you'll have 2 purposes. Maybe you'll have 10 purposes. It's up to you, as long as you can provide a rationale why you've chosen that. Outline your structure of your curriculum. So again, look at Wales, look at Scotland. They clearly map how their curriculum works, and I want you to do the same thing for yours. Breadth and balance is to make sure that there is this breadth and balance. So it's not just a hierarchy of just maths and English potentially. Maybe that's what you want to focus on, and you want to have this hierarchical structure of the most important skills that we need to focus on is maths and English, and everything else follows. That's fine. But you need to provide a rationale with academic sources to why that is what you've chosen. So there are curriculum documents here. Again, I'm not going to click on all of these. We go through these in lectures as well. Really important that you engage with the curriculum documents. You refer to them so you can use quotes. I want to see these curriculum documents. I want to see quotes. I want to see information used within your presentation. You have to constantly compare and contrast. So you can compare and say that you like parts. So you can magpie steal stuff from maybe the Northern Ireland curriculum, maybe from the Scotland curriculum. You might say that you don't like the siloed subjects in England, for example. Really important that you do that. That's a primary aim of this assessment. You have to justify all your decisions with academic sources. We keep on saying that. So important. Don't use Mumsnet. Don't just go on Wikipedia. There's a lot of you in your group. Make sure you do the reading. Look at the reading list to start. Then, for example, say you've chosen one book. You really like what they've written. Look to their reference list then and look what books they've used, and then find those books. The more that you can read and the more you can demonstrate your understanding and the more that you've read, potentially this opens you up to more marks. So really, really important that you do this. Okay, make sure that you're also engaging with curriculum documents. This sounds like a lot of work, but there's loads of you in the group, so make sure you do this. Okay, marking criteria. This should be tattooed on your neck, on your thigh, at least on your wrist. Really important that you engage with the marking criteria. So many students don't do this. They don't even know what the marking criteria is. This is different maybe in university to maybe in a sixth form, college or whatever. We tell you what you get marks for. So you can see here, maybe you can't see, that's maybe a little bit better. So you get for part 1 just 40 marks. So obviously spend more time on part 1. So present an overview of your chosen topic, providing an evaluation and understanding of the main ideas. So you need to make sure you present the main ideas. Demonstrate an ability to communicate key points in a logical and engaging way. That's important. It should make sense. Your presentation shouldn't just be a mess of people talking. It should be logical. Paying particular attention to presenting a balanced and convincing argument with academic evidence. So make sure you back up what you're saying. Demonstrate evidence of research and evaluation of academic research. So as I mentioned there. Part 2, you get 30 marks. Again, this is a big chunk of your marks here. You need to present the aims of your curriculum and clearly indicate how their curriculum will be structured. Demonstrate a detailed knowledge of the similarities and differences between the curricula in the UK. All ideas must be supported by academic sources and government documents, as I've said. Okay, 10 marks here. Communicate effectively with listeners and viewers. So really important you make eye contact with the webcam. Really important that you speak up. As you can see, you're probably getting really annoyed with my hands that keep on moving. It's really important that you gesture naturally. You should be trying to develop these skills. You're going to be delivering online as a teacher in the 21st century from now until you finish your career. I'm sure of that. So it's really important that you develop these skills. Good eye contact, I've said there, speaking clearly, positive body language, varied pitch, tone, delivery. It shouldn't just be you reading slides. Really important that maybe you've got a bit of a script and you've practiced. It's, those 10 marks, we don't just give them away. Really, really, really important you practice this, guys. It should look good. It should look effective, polished, rehearsed. It should do. You'll get more marks for that. Okay, 5 marks up for grabs. Use of digital content. So we don't just want to see PowerPoints on the screen with loads of writing, loads of quotes, and you just reading them. This is a vodcast. It should be engaging. We want to see multimedia. We want to see pictures, videos, links, use of apps. I'll be showing you this in sessions. You should be trying to push the envelope with your digital skills. If you're quite worried about digital skills, if you're not that au fait with using them, this is the module, hopefully, that will help you with that. And there's a group, so I'm sure somebody in your group is going to be good with digital skills. Maybe they do more of the digital stuff. Okay, we've got there like titles, cuts, transitions. I'll show you how to do that on things like iMovie, on Canva, on Adobe. Loads of platforms that are free that you can use. This is a super easy one. You should easily be getting 5 marks here. Engagement and contributions to sessions. I'll be taking registers. Make sure that you attend all the sessions. And if you do attend, make sure you're contributing and you're not just on your phone. It costs a lot of money to come to university. If you are in the room, be in the room. This, so important. Engage with stuff. Talk. If you're asked a question, maybe you can't answer it, but try and contribute. Really, really important. So there's 5 marks. You should all be getting 5 marks there, surely. You're only in 2 days, surely. Referencing, again, I know you're new to university. I can help you with referencing, but it's important that you start to use the conventions of Harvard referencing style. This is just a style of referencing. For a lot of you, you drive. You have to follow the laws of the road. With Harvard referencing, those that write, you have to follow the laws of Harvard, their style. Again, I can talk through that in sessions. Finally, evidence of critical reflection using a pro forma document. So you're going to upload a Word document, a pro forma document. This is on the assessment tile. I'll go through this in sessions. It's really important that you reflect on how you've worked as a group. Obviously, group work is not something that always comes naturally. Be honest. Talk about how did you work as a group? What did you do well? what did you do maybe not so well? It's important that you reflect here. Don't just put one-word answers in your pro forma. Okay, I'm going to stress this because I've said it already. Supporting your work. Make sure if you are presenting an idea, you need to say and support it with an academic source. So read through your work. Ask yourself, says who? So if you've presented an idea, great. Well, who supported this? So say who has supported this. All your key points, think about so what and who was supporting this. Is this interesting? Is this relevant? All these things you need to keep asking yourself. Academic sources are not Mumsnet. They shouldn't just be able to be found on the first Google search that you put in. Don't be lazy with this, guys. There's loads of you in your group. Make sure you're using Cardiff Met Search. You're looking for relevant academic sources. You will not get good marks if you're just using web sources. Don't be lazy with this. If you need help, I can help you in sessions. There's a reading list to start with. Look at my lectures, look at my reference lists. I've started you off, I've done a lot of the hard work. Use some of the references from the lectures. Obviously, you'll get more marks when you've read outside of my lectures. Do the Moodle tasks. You've got Moodle tasks. Do them. I've set you chapters to read. There's a whole point of that, so you can support your work with relevant reading. Make sure you do that. Okay. You have to ensure a reference list in your pro forma document and on the last slide of your video. That is super, super, super important. All the books that you've used, all the academic sources you've used, all the websites you've used, you don't have to source and reference pictures, but you will have to source and reference videos. You will need to do it for any academic sources, the curriculum. Make sure you're keeping a list of that. You'll hate yourself at the end if you haven't made a list of things. So make sure you do that. Obviously, you're going to get marks at this, and we do look at what you've put down. A number of people think they can fool lecturers. You forget we're constantly writing and using these sources. Don't try and make them up. Okay, we will look for them. We look at every single book source that you've used. If it is made up, obviously you're not going to get marks for it. So just, it's adult education. Shouldn't need to say that, but I have. Okay. Should be 30 minutes in duration. It can go a little bit over 10%. It can go a little bit under. Obviously, try and utilise the whole time. If you've got 30 minutes, you've got, within that 30 minutes, more time to earn marks. Okay. So the submission format, you could do part 2 first. Some people have done last year part 2 first. They presented their curriculum for 10 minutes and then they did part 1 second, and then they talked about their pedagogical focus. They felt that flowed a bit better. That's absolutely fine. You need to upload that to YouTube, one of you, and then you will share that link, which you'll put on your pro forma documents, which says here. If we can't access your presentation on YouTube, you won't be able to get any marks and get any feedback. So really, really important. Don't leave the upload until the last day. It can take up to, if it's a big file, it can take up to a full day depending on your memory and depending on your broadband. Some groups last year, it took over 20 hours to upload to YouTube. So just be aware of that, okay? Leave time. Make sure you've got plenty of time to do that. Okay. This assessment will provide some really useful experience in using YouTube. This is a commonly used resource in modern education. I used to have my own YouTube channel. My 3 followers loved the content I put out. No, but this is used in classes. A lot of classes have YouTube channels. It's a great way, a great platform for you to showcase all that you've done. I would definitely, as a student, set up your own YouTube channel. And then within there, all the work that we've done, all the videos you've created, you'll have, which you can put onto your CV. Because if your memory is anything like mine, I can hardly remember anything that I've done over the 3 years, let alone what I did last week. So really important, you start to think about using media, technology to build up this portfolio for you as a teacher. So you need to set up a YouTube channel for your group. I would suggest you all set up a YouTube channel, and then you're going to upload this to your YouTube channel. I've got a guide, obviously, on how to set up a YouTube channel. Really, really easy. Again, this is separate to this video. Really important, I want to highlight, I do say on that video, depending on your account, you don't need to pay, please don't pay for YouTube, but usually you have to set up, you have to click a toggle which can take up to 24 hours. You have to give permission to YouTube to upload files that are 30 minutes and above. 15 minutes is the standard. You have to ask for permission for the 30 minutes. Permission can take up to 24 hours. So again, do this as soon as you can. Don't leave this till the last week. Don't leave this till the last day. Really important that you ask for permission from YouTube to upload videos longer than 30 minutes. Really important you do that. If you can't save to YouTube for any reason, all groups that I've had do this have been fine. If there is any technical errors, you could upload it to OneDrive and then you could send me the OneDrive link. Hopefully this doesn't happen, but there's a backup just in case. Okay, I'll show you technology and things in the session, but there are a number of things. If you don't have Apple, I'm using QuickTime at the moment. QuickTime is a screen recorder, so everything's going on my screen. It records the sound, it records the video, so you could set up a Teams meeting for your group vodcast, and you could use a screen recorder, download it, and save that to YouTube. So if you're on Apple, I'm using QuickTime Player. If you're on Microsoft, there's loads of different options. You could use Snagit. You could use the Google Chrome add-on. There's loads of different things. Again, I can talk to you about this in sessions, but start to think about these things now. How are you going to record this and how are you going to capture it? Obviously, if you use Teams, you can press record. Teams is a bit dodgy though. I recorded a few lectures and the file submissions have failed. So again, just think about using this. I would potentially use a screen recorder because you've got a backup. If you do press record on Teams and you've got a screen recorder, you've got a backup there. I'm just flagging these things to you now. It's important to think about. Don't leave this till the last week. So as you see here, most groups did this last year. Don't feel you have to do this. I really want to encourage you to step outside of your comfort zone. The ones that did really well, as you'll see, actually did some really entertaining vodcasts. Some of them did a news presentation and they dressed up and they were in character. It was brilliant. They had loads of fun actually doing it. So some people have done the news, some people did match of the day, some people have done a drama. It's up to you how you do this. You can have as much fun as you want with it. If you want to just do a traditional format, that's absolutely fine. So you could have set up a Teams call. So you've got the 4 people on the screen that you can see here. So you've got your group. Say if there's 5 in your group, if there's 6 in the group, you can all be on the same screen. And then you share your screen and you present your PowerPoint, you share your Prezi. That's a traditional format that you could focus on. It's up to you how you present. Again, we'll play around with ideas in the seminar. So I'm just trying to give you ideas to start to think about how you're going to present this. Again, a great editing tool is iMovie. So for example, you could have you all film your own bits at home. You send it to one person who will edit it all together within iMovie. I'll show you in the last week how you can do that. We'll be finishing in a minute, but just want to show you a potential vodcast structure. You could have your introduction. You've got your introduction of your broad overview of your curriculum. You could do part 1, which is 20 minutes. You do part 2, then you do a summary, and then that's your presentation, 30 minutes in total. So you're going to submit your whole file. Please don't submit 2 parts. Try and do it as one. Upload that to YouTube. You'll get the YouTube link. You'll then share that with your group. You copy the URL. You copy that YouTube link to your submission pro forma document, and then you upload that. Everyone needs to do that. You all need to complete the pro forma, and you all upload that to Moodle. I'll show you how to do that in sessions. Really important, you put your full name, you put your reference lists, you put your group members' names, you put the URL, and you have to engage with this strengths, areas of development. Think about how you've worked as a group, how you could develop. I'm sure you've got loads of questions. This is very new for a lot of you. So come to the sessions, in the lectures, ask questions. This is new. I want you to step out of your comfort zone. I want you to engage with this. This should be challenging, but there's a group. So at least you can share some of that fear, stress with your group. Okay? There's my references. That is the guide. Sorry, that was a bit lengthy. We are going to go through this. I know this is new, but as all the groups last year and the year before that have done this vodcast, they really, really enjoyed it. And they actually learned quite a lot of new skills. Okay, any questions? Ask me in sessions. Looking forward to getting started with you lot. See you soon.